Athletes from across the Northwest Territories kicked off the year showcasing their skills down south at the 2023 Wood Buffalo Arctic Winter Games.
I'm so proud of where I come from, so that's the biggest deal for me. It's just the fact that I'm able to carry this flag, and for this whole territory is the biggest honor.
At the North Slave Correctional Center in Yellowknife, a new land-based education program proved to be a big hit. Inmates completed in-class and hands-on learning aimed to provide them with an opportunity for income upon release.
It keeps me calm, I actually makes me feel like I'm worthy again.
Okay, this right here too, this just started last year, this one.
The state of housing made headlines as community members went to media and voiced frustration.
And you can see the ice, so it drains into here. It's got to be done within 10 days, but they tell me since September, okay, we don't have the windows, we have to order them, and because of COVID, and that was the last excuse, but I got in touch with them.
But there was some hope with the new Tenants Association helping renters navigate the legal system.
Should the government of the Northwest Territories be the housing provider, or should they be the regulator of housing? They should be going after the corporate landlords.
This winter, APTN drove the ice road north of Yellowknife to spend time with Cleacho Dene harvesting monitors and see the Bathurst Barren Ground caribou.
The older men would talk about the younger guys hunting. That's so different compared to when they used to go hunting.
And tragedy struck on May 6 when Gwich'in and Inuvialuit man Frank Rubin went missing from Fort Smith.
He was such an outgoing and kind person, especially, I guess, around us students.
Arguably the biggest news story of the year, wildfires. They burned earlier, they burned hotter, and they burned longer than ever before. Communities such as Hay River were evacuated more than once, and the hamlet of Enterprise burned to the ground. Climate disasters prompted conversation around the needs for Indigenous knowledge in fire management and mental health from the land.
Well, growing up, my dad was a firefighter, and so I've heard a lot of stories about how, there's been fires throughout history, but they've never been allowed to get as big as these fires have been.
In August, when Yellowknife was evacuated, many were left in desperation for financial assistance from the territorial government.
It's difficult because, everybody, like all our friends and family, are all split up all over the place.
With roughly 70% of the NWT population displaced by the fires, there was also a call for an independent public inquiry into how the NWT responded.
Sharing their experiences, looking at the lessons that may come out of it.
In the fall, APTN visited Thabatcha Fort Smith, where Métis groups were still waiting on an apology and compensation for loss of their traditional hunting rights in Wood Buffalo National Park.
Large chunks of our own land, including Wood Buffalo Park, we couldn't hunt. And we can't hunt in Alberta, Saskatchewan.
On September 30th, the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, residential school survivors renewed calls for demolition of the former residential schools in Fort Smith.
I'm still grieving from it, and I think once those buildings are torn down and we can see new buildings, then maybe new life will come into Fort Smith.
And while the NWT is still no closer to having a residential treatment center, APTN continued to cover the work being done by Indigenous organizations running land-based healing and wellness programs.
In the Western world, medicine world, we can conceptualize everything, but you kind of keep your feelings and your spirit kind of is not acknowledged, or it's not part of the system that you supposedly bring to your job. But in this, it's your spirit and your energy.
Rounding out the year, the race was on for the territory's political hopefuls.
But a lot of the issues that we're going to be talking about tonight and that the candidates have been talking about disproportionately impact Indigenous peoples.
In November, 19 members of the Legislative Assembly were sworn in. It was a vote for change. Fewer incumbents than expected were re-elected. But one longtime politician who was and would go on to become the premier RJ Simpson, Métis from Hay River.
Still in a bit of shock, but I'm excited. I think we have a really good crew, and we made a lot of progress in the last government and working with Indigenous governments, and I think that really is the future of the territory, building those relationships so that we can really build up the territory.
Simpson's election was the first time since 2011 that the top job in the territory's government was taken by somebody from a remote community. Charlotte Morritt-Jacobs, APTN National News, Yellowknife.